Hi, I'm Tim Ellison. I'm a medical writer at Oxford PharmaGenesis in our London branch. I've been with the company for about 2 years and I've been working on Open Pharma for about 1.5 years. Today I'm going to talk to you about an area of open science and open pharma that will hopefully lead to a faster future for publishing, and so that's preprints. So I'll start with what is a preprint. So the Committee of Publication Ethics defines preprints as a scholarly manuscript posted by the author in an openly accessible platform, either before or in parallel with the peer review process. So as an example, we have a preprint here that we submitted as the Open Pharma team on open access policies of high impact medical journals. It was posted within a few hours after we submitted it, and on this page you're able to see comments from the public that are able to comment on the preprint, and you can also see a Twitter feed with all of the impact that it's having on social media. So when we consider the benefits of preprints, so speed is the main one. So I've gratefully borrowed this slide from Richard Sever, who's the co-founder of bioRxiv. And so we're looking at a graph here of the general time frame of how long it takes for a research output to become accessible. So here we can see that it takes up to 800 days for a publication to become accessible. And in the top right of the screen here we have an example of a paper that was submitted in September 2015, but available almost 3 years later in March 2018. So you can see that if you're submitting a preprint, you're completely avoiding all of that time of getting your research out there. It's out there from day zero, which helps to accelerate scientific progress if you're able to see the publication that early. What are the other benefits of preprints? Well, firstly, it's free of charge. So it's free of charge to submit and it's free of charge to access a preprint. And that's because preprint servers are largely funded by large research funders. So for example, bioRxiv is funded by the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative, or largely funded by them. Another benefit is that there's transparency in the whole publication process. So if you're submitting a preprint at the time of submission, for example, you're able to look at a research output right from the beginning all the way through to publication. Another advantage is that you can establish precedents with preprints. So if you're a research group publishing a preprint, you can get your research out there without fear of being scooped by other researchers. And it's particularly good for researchers in the early stages of their career who are very concerned about getting their research out there quickly. Another advantage is that it enables one to get feedback on their publication before it's published, and that can be public feedback, so it's from a wide audience. Finally, preprints are citable, so they're associated with their own DOI, and they're findable, so lots of different websites that you can search for research outputs, you're able to find preprints on there. Right, so now we're looking at the rise of preprints. So this graph is showing this is from pre-PubMed, a graph of how preprints have risen over the years, and in recent years particularly. So preprints have been widely used in mathematics, computer science and physics for over 2 decades, but their use in biology has been relatively recent. So bioRxiv was launched by Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in 2013, and since then you've seen a large increase in the number of preprints out there. However, the use of preprints in medicine has been a more controversial topic, and it's raised a lot of debate. So as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen there are lots of different articles that are discussing the use of preprints in medicine. and potential concerns with the use of preprints in medicine. Part of this slide was presented by Heather Lang at the annual ISMAP this year, showing that in 2015, upon the release of a couple of major papers calling for the use of preprints in medicine, the number of hits on PubMed for when you search for preprint has gone up quite a lot since then. Heather also at the annual ISMAP presented her own research on the use of preprints by industry, which is a large funder of medical research. And of approximately 18,000 preprints posted before the beginning of this year, only around 1% was posted by industry-authored research. And most of this was basic science, and so not late-stage clinical trials, for example. So this brings us on to considerations for pharma and the use of preprints in medicine. So one area is where are preprints seen as promotional? So outside the safe harbour of peer review, are preprints considered promotional, or are they considered legitimate scientific exchange? Another concern is that there are risks for medical misinformation. So preprints in the wrong hands could be potentially harmful to patients. For example, if they're looking at a preprint and not realising that it hasn't been peer reviewed. Similarly, the media could take a preprint and not realise that it hasn't been peer reviewed, and that could be potentially harmful to patients. In terms of pharma, we know that they've been using preprints for basic science, but are they going to be using them for late phase clinical trials? We don't know that yet. Thirdly, another concern is, do preprints sacrifice quality for speed? So preprints are subject to basic checks on whether they are potentially dangerous, or is there any plagiarism involved? So that is could be a concern for pharma who want to have high quality publications out there. Another concern is how can comments be tracked and addressed appropriately? So pharma, we've heard from conversations in Open Pharma that there may be concerns that there could be trolling on preprints, and so they would need to work out how to address that. Finally, I just want to bring up, as you can see on this slide, there's a picture here from the annual ISMAP meeting earlier this year, where preprints were discussed in a panel session. And we did some live polling during that event. And found that there's quite a large gap between people, where people think preprints should be used, and where in reality they should be used. So firstly, most people thought that preprints should be used for pretty much everything, but realised that in reality it's not appropriate to use them for late phase clinical trials, for example. Finally, I just want to discuss what's happening now and in the future. So over the summer, the Lancet and the Social Sciences Research Network announced that they would be starting a collaboration and on a 6-month pilot for preprints. So authors submitting papers to the Lancet have the opportunity to submit a preprint of their manuscript at the time of submission. However, these preprints are not associated with the DOI, and we've heard that in a lot of cases the journal will ask the authors to take down their preprint on publication. Secondly, over the summer, Europe PubMed Central announced that they will now be indexing preprints, which is a good step forward to make preprints more exposed. And thirdly, we are awaiting with interest the launch of medRxiv, the preprint server for medicine. We await with interest to see how they are addressing these potential concerns for preprints in medicine. Finally, I just want to walk through a few resources that may be interesting for you. So firstly, there's the ASAP Bio Preprint Info Center, which has a lot of useful information on preprints. That's the bioRxiv website up there. Thirdly, we've got a blog Thirdly, we have Heather Lang's research that I mentioned earlier on the pharmaceutical industry's use of preprints. Fourthly, we've got a blog from the ISMAP panel session on preprints. So that was a basic summary of the discussion. There's a useful presentation by John Inglis at this link. And we're awaiting with interest the medRxiv updates on the Yoda project website. And there are a few papers here that are discussing the use of preprints in medicine that are quite key to look at. So thank you very much for listening.